Okay, I recorded this video, or at least I uploaded it onto YouTube about 2.5 years ago as a demonstration really for an A-star class that I was teaching, ground school. And one of the subjects we had to discuss was servo control transparency. So the video got around, because I was on YouTube, it's showing 3 million views right now. And actually one guy that I know works for a different company, they even use this video as their instructional video for their ground school to discuss what happened in this accident. So every day there's 6 or 8 comments that I get on it, and most of the people that comment, they either don't understand fully what happened, or they say, oh, this is why I'll never fly in a helicopter. Well, that's kind of like saying I'll never be a passenger in a car because I heard about a car accident on the freeway the other day. So I'm going to just tell you what's going on here. This is it's a BA model A-star, and it happened a place called Bear Creek Lodge, somewhere north of Vancouver. I'm not sure exactly where it is. And the A-star's got the servo control transparency only happens with A-stars, no other helicopter. 212, 205, or 206, Super Puma, S-76, Hughes 500, none of them get into it. And what it is the hydraulic system on the A-star has an upper limit of 600 psi, which is 40 bars, and a lower limit of 450 psi, which is 30 bars. So at 600 bars, this valve opens and it sends the excess pressure back to the tank. And at 450 psi, the horn comes on, the low hydraulic pressure warning horn. That tells you something's terribly wrong. And so the company that I had been working for when I was teaching this, they had in the past some A-stars that were flying along in cruise, and the pilots were complaining that a couple of these A-stars were getting into the servo control transparency in cruise, in a high-speed cruise, which should not be happening, but it was always the same ones. So they pulled off these valves, and the valves came from the factory without a limit, a life limit, or a service interval. And they found that instead of operating at 40 bars, they were operating at 32 to 35. So they made a rule in their company that said all these things had to come off after so many hours and put on a pressure tester and find out what pressure they were really running at, because they should have been at the high end, at 600 psi. So this company here, I heard from somebody that worked for them that some of these pilots had been complaining that this machine was getting into this. However, the pilot did something here that he never should have done, and that's why the aircraft crashes. And so what happens with servo control transparency is the servos can only put out so much strength, this 600 psi, but under certain conditions with an A-star, the blades need more, the aerodynamic forces on the blades create more force than the servos can put out. And so if you push the speed too high, the aircraft will lose control, and the blades take over rather than the hydraulics. And so the obvious question is, well, why don't they just make the servos stronger? And the reason is that the blades on an A-Star are all composite, like in a Bell or Super Puma or any of the others. The blades are metal, so the metal blades will never fail. But all the components up on the head, everything up on the head is composite on an A-Star. So, and they're composite for lightweight. So Aerospatiale wants you just to fly it like it should be flown like your mother's in the helicopter and not exceed the limits. So this is what happens when the pilots exceed the limits. So I'm just gonna play it for you. Hopefully it'll be large enough for you to see it here. I got the screen as big as I can. And I'll just tell you what's happening. So this is a Model BA, and people comment, hey, there shouldn't be 3 people in the front, but in a BA there is a mod, and it's the 3-seat mod for the front. Instead of 2, there's 3. So these guys have got 3 in the front, and there's at least 3 skiers in the back, maybe even 4, we don't know for sure. I think these people were German. Now I flew this one back in 1990, and it's an old model A-Star, the B2s and the B3s. They got bigger engines, bigger blades. Engines have more horsepower, so at this exact altitude, it would be less likely to happen in a B2 or B3, but not to say that it couldn't. So at this point in time, the pilot's going to push the nose forward to give the people a thrill. And you can hear them yelling if I turned up. And then he pulls back in the cyclic. That beep, beep, beep that you hear there, that's the high rotor horn, warning that your rotor speed's too high. And then that solid beep you heard there was the low rotor horn. So that was filmed by somebody in the back seat. So what happened was the pilot increased the speed, so now he's near the V&E for that weight and altitude. V&E is velocity never exceed. So at this altitude here with the ski basket on it, that was probably around 120 knots. And he wanted to give the guys a thrill, low to the ground, so he pushed the cyclic forward. And then he made the mistake of pulling up to kind of maybe he was going to do a climb or some sort of a thrilling maneuver. But when he pulled back on the cyclic, he loads up the disc. So when he loads up the disc, he loaded it up, and the servos wouldn't provide enough pounds per square inch of force to control the blades. And so the blades took over and the aircraft rolled. But it was powder snow there. So these guys were doing about 120 knots. And they were real close to the mountain and real deep powder snow, and they just hit the mountain. They didn't even roll over. And they kind of glided to a very quick stop. And as you can see, everybody was pretty lucky. And nobody got killed. And the skiers ask for another helicopter to keep going because they'd paid for the whole day. So that's Servo Control Transparency, and I hope you liked that little video.